Well, good morning. Thank you for being here today. My name is Todd Rufo with the Office of Economic Workforce Development. We're here today to talk about the Biotech Payroll Tax Exemption and discuss the findings of a recent Controller's Office report on the Biotech Payroll Tax Exemption. Before I hand it off to the Mayor, I wanted to quickly introduce our speakers, Board President David Chu, Jennifer Matz in the Office of Economic Workforce Development, Michael Farmer, co-CEO of Procetta Bioconformatics, Dr. Edie Kwepper from City College, Kyle Copeland, actually, if Kyle's here, a student from City College and a employee of Procetta, George Katsianis, Lincoln High School teacher in the biotech program, and Gail Medeiros, representing the Mayor's Biotech Advisory Council and acting executive director for Bay Bio. If I can ask you to hold your questions till the end, that'd be great. And with that, Mayor Newsom.
Thanks. Well, things have changed pretty dramatically in the last 5 years since we first had a chance to meet Michael and the Procetta team. You recall 5 years ago in San Francisco, as Dennis Conahan knows, we had just 2 biotech companies in the city. Today we now have over 56. We had the ember of an industry, as many of you recall, initiated, it was conceived, it started here in the city and county of San Francisco, UCSF, when Genentech was formed. The industry, though, was taking shape not within the city, was taking shape outside of San Francisco. We had the opportunity to meet with company founders and CEOs, not just Procetta, but others. Gail Medeiros bringing in folks through the Bay Bio. We had a big conference here, I think in 2005, in San Francisco, and folks expressed concern that this city wasn't being serious about recruiting, let alone even retaining their very small footprint of biotech, that we were not a city that was welcoming to the biotech and life science industry. There were 4 principal points that were brought up at the time of concern. One was the issue of permitting, the challenge of getting permits to do work like the work you see being done behind me. The challenge associated with perception, the perception that biotech wasn't necessarily wanted, biotech and life science wasn't a priority. In fact, you recall at the time, it's not a critique, I just left the Board of Supervisors, but the board had a resolution condemning the conference and commending the protesters of the Bay Bio Conference when the conference was convened. This was not an easy thing as mayor to explain to the folks there that we actually wanted biotech here and that the city family was actually supportive, but there was a lot of misinformation that was being discussed and processed at the time around what the biotech industry was all about. The focus at the time was disproportionately genetically modified engineered foods, where we had giant halibuts walking around with giant strawberries because we were splicing, some folks, Monsanto I think, splicing halibut genes, or rather splicing strawberry genes into or something along those lines so strawberries can withstand colder weather. I don't recall the details except to say that was one small part of the biotech picture, and it seemed to be the one that was being exploited by the politics at the time and was actually hurting our chances of getting biotech back to its place of birth. The third P was the issue of parking, particularly down and around this area in the Mission Bay area. It was very difficult. The parking ratios at the time were difficult to recruit businesses and companies, particularly when they could go down to South San Francisco and elsewhere and have plentiful parking. And so we had to address those 3 Ps in terms of changing the perception. We organized the Mayor's Biotech Advisory Committee. Gail and others participated in. Todd Rufo put together a public-private transaction team to deal with the permitting in the Mayor's Office of Economic and Workforce Development. Perception, we went down. I remember speaking there at the Bay Bio, pleading for forgiveness and indulgence, that it's a new day and that we're going to work through the politics of the perception, and we care deeply about this industry. We had a lot of separate meetings from that conference. We pulled down into my office and we started to meet one-on-one, and we got a chance to meet you and others at the time to make the case that we really do want you back into San Francisco or back to the place of birth of biotech. But there was one 4th P, and the 4 Ps that were the problem, and that was the issue of the payroll tax in San Francisco. And the fact was that you can do business anywhere else in the Bay Area and you don't have to be burdened by having a tax on the job that you created. Only in San Francisco do we tax you for creating a job, doing a good thing. And so folks said, look, we can stay in South San Francisco and Foster City, we can go in the East Bay, they're recruiting us all over the Bay Area, but it's a huge impediment. And we went out and we organized with Michaela Alioto Peer a framework to create a biotech tax exemption for 7.5 years, which ultimately made its way through the Board of Supervisors, and we substantively, from our perspective, began to address the problems associated with getting life science and biotech to the city. Because of those things, we were, by the way, successful in getting the California Stem Cell Institute to locate in the city. Had we not done those things, I assure you, we would never have gotten the Stem Cell Institute. We wouldn't have had an advisory committee. We wouldn't have had Nobel laureates that were flying out to Fresno with us, making a case that San Francisco is the right place, that the future of biotech and life science is very real and it's very important. This city gets it. Here we are today at a point where we need to address the issue of the biotech tax credit expiring in 2014. We have been going, we were just down in South San Francisco at a company that I won't name. I met with, 600-700 employees making the case of why this company needs to move to San Francisco. And they said, we love San Francisco, but we've opposed to 1,000 folks. We're going to have 2,000 or 3,000 next few years. What's going on with that payroll tax? They said, we're not ready to go yet, but we want to get in there in 2012, 13, 14, and that thing's going to expire. And this is important to us. And we said, well, you know what? We got to look at this again, and we got to consider an extension of this biotech tax credit. And that's what we are advancing here today in terms of highlighting the success and our desire to continue with this program. There's a lot at stake. With 56 biotech companies, with a lot of momentum, a lot of interest outside of San Francisco, but with a lot of competition for inexpensive space because of the macroeconomic downturn, and with a lot of other arguments still that prevail in many cases for staying where you are for those companies that are outside the city, we need to be particularly aggressive if we want to continue with this progress. And that's why we have asked the board and are very thankful. I think finally we've got a hearing on this, correct, Jen? Not yet. Well, we're working on trying to get this heard. But we have initiative that would extend this biotech tax credit that hasn't been calendared yet, which is frustrating, but that's another topic, and I think I brought that up ad nauseum, that we hope to get calendared at the Board of Supervisors so we can move this forward. We have, and I'll close with this, we also have the benefit of a report that was done about the success of our biotech tax credit. And it basically concluded that the cost of the credit has been de minimis compared to the benefits of the credit. That we have seen a 5-fold increase in the number of companies, minimum. We've seen a de minimis amount drawn down in terms of the exemption, somewhat $365,000, but the economic benefit's been north of $7.6 million. That not every company actually takes advantage of the tax credit, but what the tax credit does, it sends the right message. And that's why tax credits are important. That's why President Obama supports tax credits. That's why Congress is moving forward to support the president's budget on tax credits, on payroll tax exemptions to create jobs in this economic environment. The reason the president said it's the right time is because the economy is beginning to turn and people are just starting to hire, but they're making decisions on where they're going to hire. And that's why we have an exemption not just for biotech, but we have an exemption more broadly for all net new jobs in San Francisco. And we couldn't imagine more support now from the state and federal government for this program than that which we have seen from the president and by congressional leaders as well as state leaders for tax incentives to create real jobs. And so this is one that works. This is one we wanted to highlight today. This is one we hope gets extended. And I want to just thank Supervisor Chu for his support of extending the biotech tax credit. I want to thank Supervisor Dufty, who just walked in, for his support of extending the biotech tax credit. I want to again thank Michaela Alioto-Pierre for her leadership. She can't be here, but she has been out front on this for many, many years and was an outstanding spokesperson for getting us the Stem Cell Institute in the city. I want to thank members of the Chamber of Commerce, Steve Falk, and others that are here for their support. I mentioned Dennis and his team and all of the folks assembled here, including our friends from our extraordinarily successful program from Lincoln High School. We do real lab work at Lincoln, and any of you that haven't gone down, you should take a look at what Lincoln students are doing and why this is important to building our public institutions, our public education, and supporting it, these kinds of tax incentives. And you'll hear in a moment why this matters not just to public schools, but to the city colleges in the city. City College and this Bridge to Biotech, this program, this workforce training program that we've partnered with City College, is creating real jobs. Dozen-plus jobs have been created here at this specific site with and through that partnership with City College. So this is not just a business incentive in isolation. This incentivizes the public education and the vibrancy of the human capital, not just the economic capital of the city, in a way that I think is very meaningful. And I'll just also acknowledge and then pass this on to Supervisor Chu, Reg Kelly of QB3. Reg has been a leader in helping advance this narrative and this focus, and has been an extraordinary partner, not just in building bridges throughout the Bay Area, but we've had a number of trips overseas, and no one is better to make a case for why biotech needs to be in San Francisco, in places like Shanghai and Beijing and parts of Bangalore and the rest of India and around the rest of the world than Reg. And I thank you for your leadership and help and support these efforts as well. And so with that, I'll ask Supervisor David Chu to come up. And again, I appreciate his support, and we all do, for this industry and for the support of this extension.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And first of all, I just want to thank the men and women here at Preseta for the incredible work that you are doing. The mayor just mentioned programs for high school interns. The very first internship I ever had when I was had just finished my junior year in high school, I worked in a biochemistry lab and was actually a biochemistry major for my first couple years in college. And I know how incredibly difficult and how crucial this work is, obviously, for the health, really, of the world. And I understand that Preseta has some products that are just a couple years away from FDA trials, and I wish them all the luck in what they're trying to achieve here. I want to thank the mayor and his staff for inviting me to take part in today's press conference. Obviously, the mayor has proposed a number of tax proposals, and this is one that I am happy to support at this time. For those of you who have not had a chance to read the analysis of what this tax proposal and what this policy has meant for our city for the last 5 years, I think you really should do that. If you look at the number of jobs that have been created since 2004, if you look at the fraction of the life sciences building base that we have created here, which has increased by 5 times, if you look at the tax revenues that have been brought in by this industry, we have foregone about $300,000 of tax revenues per year, but have brought in about 20 times that as far as other tax revenues from companies in this area. I think the data is incontrovertible. I just want to correct one thing that was just mentioned. We just spoke to Supervisor Avalos' office. Apparently, they have tentatively put on a calendar to schedule consideration of this matter next Thursday. That is pending some information that they're still waiting for, but assuming that all comes in, we should be ready to have a conversation about this. I think this type of a tax proposal is one that we can hopefully all get around, because when the data is in, when the facts are there, when we know the effect that this has had over the past 5 years, I think this is something that hopefully we can all come together. The mayor mentioned his frustrations about moving this forward. I just want to say that I think every member of the board is absolutely committed to moving forward a set of policies to create jobs and to stimulate our economy, and hopefully this will be a piece of that. So again, thank you for being here, and I want to thank the mayor and Supervisor Dufty and all of you who are really helping to move this forward and make this a reality.
Thanks, Supervisor Dufty.
Both my mayor and my president are here. Let me just reflect on the fact that when this was originally proposed, it was not easy sledding. And I want to acknowledge Michaela, who's not here today, but Michaela, both, as the mayor indicated, really put herself out there on the stem cell initiative and then for the biotech tax credit. And so I guess I draw hope from that, that not only the renewal of this tax credit, but some of the other measures that the mayor has to stimulate job growth and to recognize those businesses that are supporting healthy San Francisco, I think are good and necessary for our city. About 5 years ago, the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce took us to San Diego, and it's one one of the trips that we take, we look at best practices. And I think we were all wowed by what San Diego has done to really line up their educational system from pre-K to PhD to be part of science and medicine and building those industries within San Diego. And I think that that's what the mayor and Michaela have done with this biotech tax credit. As David indicates, the results are in, and I think, again, it's why I hope my colleagues will look at the fact that I don't think that there's a lot of appetite on the part of the voters in San Francisco for tax and revenue measures right now. People are struggling, and so I think things that generate jobs and get our economy moving are what is really necessary and essential right now. I also want to say that I think that our responsibility as supervisors is to hold hearings and bring measures before us. One of the things that we don't like about the United States Senate is how one individual can put a hold on a measure that many other people want to consider or may be valuable for the good of the whole. And so I hope that there's a lesson drawn from this, that we should allow measures to be calendared, debated, discussed, and then take disposition or take action on those measures, and I look forward to that. Again, I just really want to underscore Michaela's role initially in this. It was a very tough fight to get this thing to happen, and I think that today is an example of why we need these types of measures for our city so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Dufty. And now Jennifer Matz from the Office of Economic Workforce Development.
Hi, just real quickly, you've heard reference to the Controller's report. There was a 5-year review done of the payroll tax exemption that was passed in 2004. And some of the numbers to highlight was that in 2000, life science occupied 1.3% of all of the regional building space. 1.3% of San Francisco's building space was life science. That stayed constant until 2005. After the exclusion went into effect, there was a notable rise, and we now have 6.1% of all the life science building space occupied by life science in the region, which is a 5-fold increase. In 2004, there were approximately 500 employees in the life sciences industries. Today, that number is over 2,750. And as you've heard reference, that 2,750 generate over $7.6 million in payroll tax, sales tax, utility user tax, and hotel tax to our general fund, which is the 20-fold increase of what this exemption is bringing back to the general fund in relation to what we have excluded from payroll tax, which is about the $350,000 number. The Controller's report concludes that extending the biotech payroll tax exclusion is an inexpensive way to position the city with an industry that has demonstrated its ability to promote its goals of economic growth and diversification. And what this extension would do is it would allow biotech companies that come to the city in the next 4 years to get the full 7.5-year credit that was allowed under law. Right now, if you came to the city, you'd only get 4 years because the extension expires in 2014. So this allows for a rolling closure. So it's a real incentive to get here before 2014 in order to get the full 7.5 years. Thanks.
And Michael Farmer from Procetta.
Well, first of all, thank you for all joining us here in our humble abode. 5 years ago, this was an empty warehouse, and we had been the award winner of a federal contract for medical research, providing we got our lab up and operating. At the time, we were one paid employee and three of us that were volunteering, and we were at facilities at Webster and Clay at California Pacific Medical Center working out of one of their labs. And we approached the mayor's office about assistance, and they were very, very helpful. And within 6 months, we had all the permitting, and we built this lab here in this empty warehouse at a fraction of the cost of certainly new facilities, but we love it. We're now 46 people and growing slowly. The payroll tax has been very helpful for us. We started in the city. We intend to remain here. And remember, some early stage companies like ourselves, you don't put the money in your pocket, you spend it because you never have enough money. And so we've been able to hire a few additional employees on the basis of those payroll tax breaks. And we intend to stay right here. The payroll tax, we'd be eligible for another couple of years and so forth. And so we're hoping that certainly that's an element. I think also there's going to be others talk about the program in which here in the city you fund interns to come basically be lab techs. and training. And we've made great use of that through the years, mainly interns from City College, San Francisco, and from Lincoln High School. We take a number of them every summer. I think we had 19 in the last couple of years, and we'll have a large class now. These are folks from disadvantaged homes and so forth. We found them to be a great source of lab technicians. We've hired a number of them. Unfortunately, as I was telling George, the high school students that do so well, they go on to college of all things. So we have to wait till they return to hire them. So, but when it comes to lab techs, I guess I like to think about it. There are those who drink from the fountain of knowledge, and there are those who just gargle. Those that have come to us from those two programs have been outstanding. And of our lab technicians, the top 4 of the top 6 came through those programs today. They work hard, they're committed, they like coming to work, working on very important things that might save a lot of lives. It's a great city to find great people doing that. Is there any other thing you'd like to talk about, or
Just maybe you can explain what the heck everybody's doing back there.
Sure. Okay. First of all, there are no infectious pathogens in this building. We're a BSL-2 laboratory, but we only work with genetic material that's non-viable. So all of the testing for our antiviral therapies are done elsewhere. A lot of it done in Maryland, Virginia. We have colleagues in Germany who are testing our HIV, HCV, and influenza compounds right now. It's a new class of drugs that are looking very, very promising because it goes after host proteins, which means we hope that the mutation that viruses normally do, you take the case of HIV, will not be an effective defense because they don't mutate the host proteins they use for replication. So it's a very exciting time for us. And what the folks do here basically is we look for compounds that are effective against those host proteins. So as we walk around, anyone who'd like to tour the lab, just ask anybody. They'll explain what they're doing. And if they're not sure what they're doing, point them out to me. Okay? Appreciate knowing that. It's very exciting for us. If these compounds prove out, as we believe they will, it's going to be something the city can be very proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And Dr. Kwepper from City College.
Hi, I'm very proud of our partnership here with Proceta. We also have partnerships with several other entities within San Francisco, such as Gladstone, also with UCSF, and they've been great at taking our interns. Our program's been around for 14 years. However, we just started the internship portion of it about 7 years ago. And over the 7 years, we've learned a lot. And a lot of it comes from having more and more companies come in and ask for our interns, and they give us feedback on what they want. Now, I gave a handout to give you guys an idea of what the biotech program is like. It's constantly growing because the field of biotechnology is constantly growing. You don't want to limit San Francisco to just a few things that could come in because San Francisco is such a wonderful place. We want to have everybody come here. And so what's City College of San Francisco is doing is we're trying to see what the future needs may be. And those of you who have seen this, we gave an idea of where you can start in. And we have students who come to us anywhere from someone who has no knowledge of biology. In that case, we put them in the Bridges to Biotech program, and we march them through to an internship. To those who already have their BAs in biology, we've had people from Harvard and Stanford and Berkeley, and they come to get the hands-on that unfortunately you can't really get anymore in a lot of the four-year institutions. So we teach them how to be technicians. We have the stem cell program, which just got funded by CERN, and we're really proud about that. And so we also are looking to branch out into even new and better areas, such as green technology. So there's a lot of green portions that are in biotech. People don't think about that, but you know that big spill that was up in Alaska about 20 years ago, the Exxon Valdez? That was actually helped to be cleaned up by a little bacteria that was an oil eater. Their ecosystem was going to die, right? They threw in this bacteria they weren't quite certain what would happen. Well, what happened is they saved the ecosystem. So these are the type of things that we're hoping San Francisco is going to work on and things like that. We're already seeing biofuels popping up around South San Francisco. It'd be nice if they start to come into here. So we're also working to try and find funding, because in these days, of course, funding's hard, to start environmental monitoring and green paths within our biotechnology program. But one of the things that really helps us is industry working with us. The more companies we have here, the more we can put our students within companies in San Francisco. We've been exporting students throughout the whole Bay Area. We're the largest biotech program in the Bay Area here at City College, and I've been told by BioLink that we're the biggest in the country. So we have something to really be proud of here in San Francisco, and it's a carrot to bring people in, because we are training quality students, anywhere from students with bachelors already in biology to those who want to get their feet wet and thought, well, biotech sounds like a neat career. Is there anything else you'd like me to talk about?
That was brilliant. What more can we say? I didn't know we were the biggest in the country. That's great.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
And of course, we also work with George Katsianis, and we're now working with the high schools that George works with, so that high school students can get their hands on stem cells. And we're hoping, it looks like it might be good, that this is going to go nationwide, and we'll be exporting this idea to other parts of the country, just like we exported the bridge to biotech, and now it's been adopted by the whole state of Texas, but it was born here.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you. And now we have Kyle Copeland, a City College graduate and Prosetta employee.
All right.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. As introduced, my name is Kyle. In addition to being an employee here at Prosetta, I am also a graduate of City College's Bridge to Biotech program. It's a program that I consider responsible for a very important transition in my life. It was a point where I transitioned from a field marred with sporadic unemployment to now a career that is likely to sustain me as much in the following decade as it does even today. 4 years ago, in 2006, I spent as much time looking for work as I did actually working. Towards the end of that year, my search for a job was taking me farther and farther away from San Francisco, the city in which I was born and raised. Now, leaving the city wasn't something I considered particularly ideal, so I began thinking about changing careers. I needed a career that was going to give me a decent wage. I wanted something that was in the local area, that was in demand, and I wanted something with some sort of staying power that might be around in a decade or two. By chance, I came across City College's biotech program, and the bridge in particular was designed for people specifically like me, individuals who had no history of science. Now, I've always enjoyed science. I just never saw myself as being a part of it, playing a role in it. But as I came to discover, their approach made it far more accessible than a standard 4-year might have been for me. They focused more on context to explain technique and principle. Their faculty is derived from individuals who have lived and worked in the industry, and the coursework was designed to tell you and to teach you what you must do, as well as what you must know. The result of all this was that I was never left to wonder at the end of a lecture what I had learned and how it applied to the actual real world. Those connections were a very part of the curriculum. After a year of study, I was given the opportunity to intern here at Prosetta. The internship went well. I was apparently well prepared for it. As it drew to a close, I was extremely fortunate that Prosetta was in a position that they could offer me a full-time job, and I readily accepted. My particular story is not inherently unique. I am neither the first nor the last City College graduate to end up being employed here at Prosetta. I am, however, extremely fortunate to be employed at all. The fact that I get to be employed in a field that I find as exciting as this is all that much better. And the fact that I get to do so in the very heart of San Francisco is sweeter still. I have never had so fulfilling a job, nor have I had so convenient a commute in my life to date. Thank you all.
Well done.
Thank you, Kyle. George Katsianis from Lincoln High School.
Thank you. The mayor's asked me to say a few words about the history of our program. We were founded in 1995, and we've been in business for 15 years. We've had over 1,200 students take a full-on year of molecular biology at Lincoln High School. We now have a 2-year program. We had to add a second year because the student demand was so intense. So we now have 180 students a year studying molecular biology at Lincoln High School. We're fortunate to have articulation agreements with City College, first of all, who's been the single biggest supporter of our program from the beginning. UCSF, who takes a number of our interns over the summer. Stanford and MIT, whom we have some research agreements with, and Beijing University. We now have students working at dozens of companies around the Bay Area, including Genentech, Applied Biosystems, my old company, Genentech, and I was very gratified to hear from Michael that they had 5 interns from Lincoln High School right here at Procetta. The first year of our course has now been expanded to 6 high schools in San Francisco. Lincoln has a 2-year program. Mission, O'Connell, Lowell, Wallenberg, and Galileo high schools have a 1-year program. Now, about the program itself, I developed a program to address 3 deficiencies that I was hearing from my colleagues at Genentech and other companies about incoming undergraduates who have just finished their 4-year degree. Number 1, they can't write very well. No surprise, it's a systemic problem. Number 2, they don't know how to work in teams. And number 3 is my absolute favorite, they don't know how to do anything. Well, in terms of writing well, we require our students to keep legal scientific notebooks the same way I was required to as an employee at Genentech, including witnesses and all the particulars of a legal scientific notebook. So when they get to college, they already know how to do that. In terms of working in teams, we have 6 teams in every class, and they are your companies, basically. Fibrogen, who's been terrific to us, accepting 2 interns last year. We'll add Procetta to the mix. They study your companies. They know about your business structure. They know about what kind of jobs and what the qualifications are. They know what your basic research is, and they even understand the mechanism of action of a couple of your drugs. All of that helps to motivate them to come here. In terms of not knowing how to do anything, we're very applications-based. It's an extremely hands-on program, which turns students on. They know how to make recombinant DNA. They know how to purify proteins. They do Western blotting. They sequence their own cheek cell DNA. They know how to use NSF databases to take a look at sequences and make comparisons. In addition to applications, though, we think it's important that they learn the implications of this science. What does it all mean? Where might it all go? And that would include ethical considerations in the use of this technology. We also, though, focus on the limitations of today's technology, because if you tell a high school student the PCR reaction is limited to 5,000 base pairs, immediately they'll say, well, did they try this? Did they think of that? It gets them going and focused on what challenges they can contribute to in the future. Finally, I'd like to say that the program the mayor proposes is a win-win investment for this city. Our goal is to make prepared, aware, and motivated workforce, and that's going to be important to companies that move here. A home-based workforce, which will lower your recruitment costs and lead to a longevity. People who live here want to stay here. Finally, I'm fond of saying to parents who visit Lincoln High School, don't you want your grandchildren to grow up here? But don't you want them also to have their own home? We've got to get real. It's an expensive city to live in, second only to Manhattan. And this industry will provide the kind of job that will keep your grandchildren growing up where you can enjoy them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George. And Gail Medeiros.
Thank you. I've watched the bioscience community grow up here over the last 5 years, and I have to say it's tremendously rewarding to see the growth that has happened. And the payroll tax exemption was an integral part of making that happen. It was a key reason that companies like Fibrogen and Procetta and Nectar and 5' moved into San Francisco. But the payroll tax exemption has done more than pull in companies. And while The economics, as Jennifer described, are such that the return to the city has been over a 20x increase in revenue and tax base. It's done more than that. In terms of workforce development, it's provided internships for Georgia's high school students, internships and entry-level jobs for students graduating from the City College program. And it's also facilitated tech transfer and increased entrepreneurship with UCSF and QB3 under Reg Kelly's direction. So it's been a real catalyst for growing not just an industry, but a community and an integrated community. People have asked why we need the exemption now with the payroll tax expiring in 2014. And the answer is very simple. Despite the economic downturn, we are at almost 100% occupancy of already built lab space in San Francisco. And the companies that are looking at moving into San Francisco now are looking at a 2-year window to be able to build up space from the ground up, outfit it. And when you're making the kind of capital investment that you can see behind us here at Procetta, you're making a long-term decision with leases that extend out 5, 7, 10 years. We have tremendous momentum here, and we need to keep that momentum going. And extending the payroll tax exemption is absolutely critical to maintaining the momentum that we have started here. I'm really privileged to be a part of the life science community in San Francisco, and I look forward to its continued growth. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Gail. And any questions?
So the exemption isn't to extend it past 2014. It's to bring in people, to give them the 7 years as if they've been here from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly right. So if you started now, you only have 4 years left. But reality is, every year it's 3 years, 2 years, 1 year. If it's 2013, this would extend. Anyone gets in under that date would get that full 7.5 years.
Why do some companies not take advantage of the
Good question for the industry. Why some companies don't take advantage of the payroll tax exemption. I mean, a lot of companies don't take advantage. I mean, this is a big issue. And Todd, one of his principal jobs has been, and one of the things I'm very proud of as part of our local economic stimulus, was doing outreach to businesses and making them aware of a lot of these incentives that are already on the book, drawing down federal tax credits, new market tax credits, drawing down enterprise tax credits, et cetera. And so they've done an outstanding. I think you had a 47% increase in the number of applications for these tax credits since they initiated this outreach a year or so ago when we launched that local economic stimulus. Is that it? All right. Thank you all. Thank you again, everybody, for being here. Great job. Thank you. Yeah.